Well, hello there. Welcome to part two of the secrets of Playboy. So, as you all know, we started this topic last week. We got to about episode five ish, right? So, today we are picking up with episode six. And today we are going to get into some salacious accounts of course, some things that happened behind the scenes of Playboy, but we're going to get some firsthand accounts from some women who were intricately involved in Playboy, both of whom had risen to the executive level of Playboy, right? So we're going to get the perspective of women who were very deeply involved in this organization at a level that you can dare to say that most women never even rose to within the Playboy conglomerate. All right. So, listen, I have a brief video that I want to share with you all to kind of, I guess, enter into the topic. It's a 3-minute video. It talks about the life and the passing of one of the most famous Playboy playmates, I should say, that there ever was. Her name was Dorothy Stratten. And she actually did what Playboy promised you could do with the opportunity, right? She actually became somewhat of a movie star. And unfortunately, she eventually met an untimely end. So, anywho, I'm going to share my screen. We're going to watch that vid, and then we will dive right into our scheduled programming. So, let me just share my screen. Chrome tab, share tab audio. All right, here we go.
Hey, we have a look back now at Dorothy Stratten. She was the Playboy playmate murdered by her estranged husband. And he's back with that story. Hey, Amy.
Yeah, good morning, George. It's been nearly 4 decades since her now infamous murder, and some friends of her that knew her best are speaking out about Dorothy Stratten and her incredible journey from a Dairy Queen in Canada to international stardom. Dorothy Stratten, Playboy playmate, actress, a living fantasy for millions of men in 1980.
Dorothy Stratten, in many ways, was almost like a fantasy of what the Playboy reader or the Playboy fan would want.
She just was a sweet, effervescent angel.
When the Canadian beauty was still in high school, Paul Snyder, a local pimp and small-time promoter, approached her while she was working at the Dairy Queen in Vancouver.
Paul Snyder was a predator. You think of him and you think of a wolf.
So he sees a sexy girl at Dairy Queen. What can happen for me through her is of interest to me.
Snyder and Stratten start dating, and he convinces Dorothy to pose nude for Playboy submission photos.
Playboy had a big playmate hunt, looking for the 25th anniversary playmate. Dorothy was one of the runners-up.
I worked for Playboy for 43 years. It was pretty easy to know if a girl was going to make it or not.
After catching the eye of iconic mogul Hugh Hefner, she was crowned 1980 Playmate of the Year, earning all of the perks that came with it.
I got a $65,000 Russian fur sable coat.
Oh, I didn't see that one here.
A $26,000 Jaguar and a $25,000 check.
And started landing movie and television roles, but not before marrying Snyder.
He pushed her to marry him. She, I don't think, really wanted to.
She felt that she owed him that, so she just kept hoping for the best.
She was the meal ticket, but he was afraid that he could lose her, which he did.
As Stratton's star rose, a big-time movie director, Peter Bogdanovich, also became infatuated with her and cast her in one of his movies.
Will you marry me? Okay, I will.
Compared to Paul, Bogdanovich was a prince. When you're comparing filet mignon to hot dog on a stick, there's a big difference.
Between her newfound success and love affair with Bogdanovich, Dorothy decided to separate from Snyder.
So she drove to his house and met with him there.
She never felt that there was any danger in anything with Paul Snyder.
And then, bang, she was murdered.
Now, after killing Stratten, Snyder turned the gun on himself. Her life and death have inspired countless books and movies, including Bob Fosse's classic film, Star 80, George.
Yeah, we remember that. Okay, Amy, thank you. You can see much more about Dorothy Stratten when a special 2-hour 2020, The Death of a Playmate, airs tonight at 9, 8 Central. That's right here on ABC.
All right, so we now have met Miss Dorothy Stratten. So we have an idea of some of the things that happened. Now, mind you, Dorothy Stratten was not harmed by someone who himself worked for Playboy, right? Her then estranged husband, who ended up causing her death, was not a Playboy employee. But we do know that there had been some warning signs, allegedly, of his behavior that Playboy ignored. That is, of course, the allegation that was put forth by the former Playboy playmates that we've heard from. So anywho, just a little side story before we dive on in. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to be starting with episode 6. Episode 6, which is titled The Corporate Game. Okay, so in this episode, we hear from Mickey Garcia and PJ Mastin, both women who, as I said earlier, were involved in the executive level of Playboy. Okay, so understand, we're not talking about women who just posed for the magazine, right? We're talking about women who had worked their way up into levels of leadership in the corporate side of Playboy, okay? And I stress that because that says to the viewer that, first of all, their perspective of Playboy is pretty wide, right? And second of all, it says that anything that they share comes from the perspective of the business behind Playboy. So it's a lot more to consider than just someone who simply posed for the magazine. Okay. Alrighty. So let's start with PJ Mastin, right? Let's talk about some of the things that PJ Mastin shares. So as I like to do, I want to show you all pictures. I was going to say a picture, but pictures of PJ Mastin. So let's do that. All right, this is her. So first, let's look through some pictures, shall we? So here we have PJ Mastin and Bill Cosby. All right. Here we have PJ Mastin posing with some of her original bunny photos. Here's PJ Mastin again as a bunny. PJ Mastin again. Okay. And here's a side-by-side of a young PJ Mastin and PJ Mastin today. Okay. So let's have a conversation. We'll keep the side by side up, right? While we have a conversation about who PJ Mastin was before we delve into some of the things that she shared about Playboy in this episode. So PJ Mastin was what was called a bunny mother. So at each of the Playboy clubs, if you will, right, they had bunnies that would serve the men, kind of acting as bartenders and waitresses and things like that, right? And so the bunnies had supervisors or managers. Those supervisors / managers were known as bunny mothers. So that is what PJ Mastin did as her first kind of managerial role. She was the bunny mother for a certain Playboy club. Now, she did move to a different club, and from there, she kind of worked her way through the ranks, right? But all in all, she was in a managerial position, and she directly managed women who worked at the Playboy clubs. Okay. So now that you've got that background as to who PJ Mastin is, let's talk about her specific story. So she was a bunny mother from 1975 to 1982. All right. And in this episode, she shares a couple of things that happened to her while she was in her position. So in one instance, she shares that she had a high-level executive kind of insinuate that for her to maintain her position, there was something she had to do. PJ Mastin then describes that this man grabbed her against her will and began to force himself onto her. She said that she specifically told him that she did not want to do anything. She did not consent. And allegedly, this man said to her, well, why do you think you came to work in corporate? You have to play the game if you want to do anything in corporate. So there was this insinuation that for a woman to rise through the ranks in Playboy on the business end, right, on the corporate side, she had to acquiesce to being an object, a physical object for all of the men that were there. Now, you also have some tidbits from other women involved in Playboy who confirm this. You have women saying that in the Playboy offices, it was the norm for a male employee to walk up to you and slap you on the buttocks. It was the norm for a male employee to walk over to you and make a comment about your body. It was the norm for a Playboy employee to walk over to a female employee and grope or touch her, right? All of these allegations kind of are aligned with the allegation that PJ Mastin made about what she was told as she entered the executive suite of Playboy. All right. So listen, I realized that I was kind of like so ready to jump into this that I don't think I did my usual pleasantries. So first of all, let me do that. Let me hop into the chat. Let me say hello to everyone. Hello, everyone. How are you? Everyone, drop a 1 in the chat for me if you can hear me clearly, if you've been able to see everything clearly, just so I have confirmation. All righty. And let me go ahead and let everyone know that we are live now. These are things that I normally do before I start the live. And like I said, today I just jumped right in. It just didn't, I didn't remember. Okay. Alrighty, so let's continue. Okay. So PJ Mastin also says that within her position as a bunny mother, right, she, as we discussed, she manages the bunnies, which means that in addition to the things that she personally experienced, she begins to discuss the things that she heard through the bunnies and the situations that she was kind of in. She was kind of tasked with cleaning up. Now, remember, we discussed there being a cleanup crew. Well, PJ Mastin was a part of said cleanup crew. So PJ Mastin begins to share some of the things that she believes happened to bunnies, just based upon them sharing with her things that happened to them. Okay, so we won't dive too far into that, but we'll leave it at this. PJ Mastin insinuates, as I shared with you all in the last live, that throughout her time at Playboy as a bunny mother, she heard so many stories about abuse that it was too many to count. And it was the norm for her to have to get medical attention, to have to calm down, to have to comfort women who had just been intimately assaulted. It was something that she said happened far too often. Okay. Now, before we move on from PJ Mastin, we have to discuss another major allegation that PJ Mastin makes. So, as you can see in her pictures, you see she has a picture or two with Bill Cosby. Well, PJ Mastin alleges that Bill Cosby was a norm at one of the clubs in which she was a bunny mother. She says that she had kind of become, familiar with him because of her role in Playboy. And she also alleges that she knew that Bill Cosby and Hugh Hefner were very close friends. Okay. So PJ Mastin goes on to say, or goes on to allege, that Bill Cosby did intimately assault her in 1979. So she tells a story of being invited to have a drink and some dinner with Cosby. She says she goes to meet him and he offers her a drink. She says yes. She says that he poured her a drink. She doesn't say that she saw him put anything into the drink or that she accepted any type of drugs. She says that the only thing that she sees is that he pours her a drink. She then reports that she took a couple sips of her drink, and that is the last thing she remembers. She says she then woke up the next morning, laying in bed without her clothing and in a lot of pain, and realizing that something had happened to her. Okay. So PJ Mastin describes in the series that she, in addition to the pain, right, that she knew for sure that something, off kilter had happened, because when she went to go to the restroom, she was bleeding. Okay. So she says that she knows without a doubt that she was taken advantage of. She said that she was distraught. She said that she was in such a horrible physical state that she was just bleeding everywhere. She says that she reported the incident to her manager / supervisor, who then, I guess, kind of suggest that the complaint is being taken seriously, but then ultimately nothing happens with the complaint, right? Ultimately, she says to her knowledge, nothing was ever done about the complaint that she lodged against Cosby. Now, another thing just hit me that I maybe should say, honestly, should go without saying, but I will say it. This content is not appropriate for children. In fact, the cases that we cover on this channel, honestly, I don't think it's children material. Okay, so if you are not at least 18 years old, I don't think you should be on this stream. Okay, all right. So anywho, so PJ Mastin reports to her supervisor / manager that she was harmed, right? That Cosby did something to her, and she says nothing was done about that. Cosby was never reprimanded in any way that she knows of. No police report was filed. His privileges at Playboy clubs was not restricted. Nothing was done as a result of him doing what he did to PJ Mastin, right? So that is PJ Mastin's story. Now we're going to meet Mickey Garcia. So I'm going to stop sharing that screen. All right, while I queue up Mickey Garcia. Hello to Tyrone Motif. Hello to Empress Kaya. How's everyone doing? And hello to everyone in the bushes. I understand, we all have our weeks where we really just want to listen and not necessarily want to chit chat, right? All right, so I'm pulling up some pictures of Mickey Garcia, and the documentary also gave us, a nice bit of background on Mickey Garcia's life, if you will, and so I'll share some of that with you as well. All right, so let's go to share screen. All righty, I should have had my coffee. I usually have another coffee before I do these streams, and I did not, and I'm dragging a bit right now. Alrighty, so Mickey Garcia. So Mickey Garcia that we know of is half Hispanic, half Caucasian. Beautiful young woman. Look at this picture here. Oh, flawless, right? And she was raised Catholic. And so she really was drawn to Playboy, right? Because of here's another picture of young Mickey. Oh, just a doll, right? And so she really was drawn to Playboy because of the whole girl next door promise. Okay, so for those of you who are unfamiliar with the reputation that Playboy had a reputation for having a girls next door vibe. It wasn't this hardcore magazine. It was viewed as, if you were to see the behind the scenes of your neighborhood crush, right? And so Mickey Garcia, being raised as a Catholic woman, she felt more comfortable with the kind of work that Playboy did because she believed that it had some well, I almost used the word some innocence, right? We'll say that some innocence to it. Okay. Hello to Mara Cherise. Mara, can you drop the name of your company in the chat again, please? For those of you who do not know, Mara has an amazing company. Drop the name of your company and your website in the chat for us, please. Alrighty, so let's continue. So that's some background on Mickey Garcia, right? And kind of what brought her into Playboy. It's the whole girls next door vibe, right? And so now let's hear about who Mickey Garcia was. So Mickey Garcia started out as a playmate, meaning she just started out as posing for the Playboy magazine. Now, she experienced some things while she was a playmate and posing for the magazine that she was concerned about, right? She already began to observe the way that men treated playmates, the way that men viewed playmates as sort of just hmm, objects, right? And as objects that were there really solely for their enjoyment and not as human beings. So as Mickey starts to see that, she gets concerned, right? And she thinks, maybe it's not Playboy, maybe it's the structure. So instead of just bailing on Playboy altogether, Mickey takes a change it from the inside out sort of mentality, right? She says, I'm going to change it from the inside out. She says, I'm going to work my way up into leadership and make some changes. So she does just that. She becomes the director of Playboy Promotions. Now, at this time, Playboy did something they called Playboy Promotions, where they would fly playmates all over the country, all over the world to appear at an event, right? So let's say, for example, you were throwing a really big conference to display a new prototype of sports car, right? You could contact Playboy and you could say, "Hey, Playboy, can you send out, a few playmates to help me show off the cars and to work the car show, the car conference?" And Playboy Promotions would then contact playmates who would be flown out there for the event, right? So that is what Mickey Garcia was in charge of. She was the director of Playboy Promotions, okay? And she became the director because she was concerned that these girls were not being treated as human beings and that it wasn't necessarily Playboy, right? This is what she thought then, that it wasn't necessarily Playboy, but that it was the men that were at these events. Okay, so let me take a second to highlight this comment. All right, everyone. So Mara Sharice's company, it's called I Deserve, www.jemerite.com. And she's having a 50% off sale for Women's History Month. Okay, towards the end of the stream, let me text myself. Because towards the end of the stream, we may take a second and go on over to her website. I hate that my laptop is auto-correcting it. Jere, no, Jeme, Jemerite, Jemerit.com. Okay, I'm just texting it to myself. So towards the end of the stream, we may mosey on over there and check out her business. Okay. Hello to Nappy Yankee. Nappy Yankee has posted the Cash App. You are welcome to support the channel if you feel so called to. Alrighty. Your support is much appreciated. So now let's talk about why Mickey Garcia felt that it was the men who were the problem, right? And not necessarily Playboy. And let's talk about what changed her mind. Like how did she transition? Because we know that she eventually ended up in a place where she just thinks Playboy is to blame. But how did she get there, right? How did she get there? So Mickey Garcia shares with us that she actually went on a promotional gig for Playboy. And that while she was on this promotional gig, there was a man present at the event who followed her back to her room. It was a hotel. Followed her back to her room, forced himself into her room, and then proceeded to assault her in an intimate manner. She shares that she actually did not tell anyone at Playboy about what had happened to her. And she discusses that it is because she feared that she would be viewed as a problem. In her words, she said, "I didn't want to become a problem to Playboy. I didn't want for them to perceive me as a whiner or a person that couldn't handle the job. And so the tough part of me kicked in. I knew this is the way it was going to go, and that was it." Now we have to pause and take a moment there. Because everyone, when we talk about employment and we talk about work environments and, we talk about employment law and we talk about hostile work environments and things like that, we throw these terms around. And a lot of times the lay person doesn't understand what that really means in their life, right? In their everyday life. So, everyone, this is the epitome of a hostile and dangerous work environment. When you go on a work assignment and you are assaulted and you are afraid to tell your boss, afraid to tell the company you work for, because you think that they will view you as the problem for reporting that you were assaulted, that right there is the epitome of a hostile work environment. Mickey Garcia was a victim. And she was afraid to report it to Playboy because she knew that the culture there would be for them to say that she's whining and complaining about being intimately assaulted. Wow. Wow. That speaks volumes as to the environment that the women at Playboy were being introduced to, right? Imagine an environment in which reporting an assault against your person equates to being a problem and whining. So at that time, Mickey was young and she just viewed it as, well, I have to do what I have to do for my company, right? But you see in this episode, you see an older, wiser Mickey Garcia who says, looking back on it, I realized that Playboy was the problem because of exactly what I just said, everyone. She says that she realized that Playboy created the environment which made you feel unsafe. Playboy created the environment which made these women feel like they're not supposed to report to the police what happened to them. They're not supposed to tell anyone what happened to them. They're not supposed to make a stink when these things happen to them. Right? Ooh, such a heavy thing for many of these women to deal with and carry for so many years. I want to say hello to Doug. All right. And Mara Cherie says, reminder to share the stream on your socials. Absolutely. And hit the like button to trigger that algorithm. Yes, yes, yes. So listen, y'all. Um, there is something going on with my channel and YouTube. I don't think I've ever told you all before, but my channel for the most part is demonetized. Um, and it's very interesting because I discuss the same topics as everyone else. So why my channel is not appropriate, listen, I don't know, right? So, but it's always been very interesting to me because I wonder, what do they decide is monetizable, right? And here's the thing. Demonetization doesn't mean anything to me because I don't make my income from YouTube, right? But what it means is they don't view it as appropriate for pushing it in the algorithm. So what it means is that they're not promoting or pushing my videos in the algorithm at all because they don't view it as what they want to promote. Now, why that is, I am not sure. Maybe if I ever took the time to study the way this whole YouTube algorithm thing is, I'd figure it out, But it's strange to me because all I do is teach. I just come on YouTube and teach. So I don't know what it is about that wouldn't be appropriate for people to learn. I don't know. Interesting. And I don't allege that my videos are for children either. So I don't know. Very strange. All right. So Nappy Yankee is sharing the Instagram for Jemerit. Did I say it right, Mara? I don't know. All right, so Empress Kaya has a question. She says, do you think he created that environment on purpose? Very good question, Empress Kaya. Yes. Yes. So as we discussed at the last episode, right? Hugh Hefner himself had many questionable proclivities, right? And Sandra Theodore talks about that, right? She discusses that he had proclivities for, women of a certain age. He had proclivities for other types of beings, and it was very strange. And so in my humble opinion, it appears that Hugh Hefner created an environment in which women were made to feel like any and everything that happened to them, they should accept. Because that's the only type of environment that would allow him to get more and more and more extreme, as Sandra Theodore explained, right? I mean, imagine the kind of environment where Hugh Hefner could say, "Oh, get that dog," and he could bring that dog into his bedroom, right? Yeah, you have to create the kind of environment where women feel like anything goes and they have to just shut up and take it. That's that's the way that Hugh Hefner was able to get away with that for so long. Hello to a Jade Stone. Nappy Yankee says, I know why. Nappy Yankee, I'd love to hear your take on why. I would love to hear your take on yeah, I'd love to hear that because I don't know why. I'm like, I'm covering the same topics as everyone else. I'm teaching the law. Everyone else, listen, everyone else is just gossiping and whatever. Um and I'm like, I'm teaching the law. So what is it about that YouTube finds to be problematic, So I would love to know your thoughts on that, Nappy Yankee. All right. Mara says, yes, yes, yes. That is exactly how you say it. And the Insta is at Shop Gemerit. Okay. So everyone check out her company. And like I said, towards the end of this stream, I'm going to actually go onto her website and show you all her website. Listen, everyone, it is a powerful thing to find something that you're passionate about and do it on your own. Being an entrepreneur is a powerful thing. And even if you have a 9 to 5, right? You can do something on the side, right? But have something that is your own. And then when you do have that thing that is your own, celebrate that. And so we have to support each other and support our fellow entrepreneur and encourage each other. We are very, very quickly coming into a time where relying on being an employee is going to be a big problem. Okay, so I encourage everyone, what's your thing? What's your gift? What's your passion? Find it, pursue it, even if it's just something that you do on the side, you know? All right, so let's get back into Mickey Garcia. Okay, so we know that Mickey Garcia herself was horribly assaulted, right? We know that Playboy was the epitome of a hostile work environment. That's an employment law term, right? Because we know that these women were made to feel like they were not supposed to report things that were horrendous. Okay, so let's see what else Mickey Garcia had to say. So she then decides, as I said, to move up the corporate ladder because she thought that she could protect women by moving up the ladder, right? However, Mickey then starts to share with us some of the things that she witnessed as she, climbed the ladder. Now, she believed, as I said, that she could change things from the inside out. She believed I'm going to work my way up, and when I get to the top, I can change everything. And she began to see that that was not the case. Okay. So Mickey Garcia starts to share that she bonded with a lot of the playmates because when you're running Playboy promotions, you're meeting all of these playmates, you're assigning them jobs, you're sending them out to gigs, right? So she develops a bond with these women, much like how PJ Mastin had bonded with a lot of the playmates. Okay. So Mickey goes on to say that she bonded with and befriended many of these women and that she started to see things that concerned her. So one of the main things she started to see that was concerning for her is drug use. Okay, she started to see women who, they showed up sober and healthy, and then a little while in, she starts to notice that they seem to be dependent on substances and not healthy and not doing well. And so Mickey Garcia starts to tell playmates not to go to the mansion. I believe it was both Mickey Garcia and PJ. I believe it was both Mickey Garcia and PJ Mastin. Do y'all hear Mac? Do y'all hear Mac? One moment. I just had to yell at Mac, y'all. Ooh, and now I got the hiccups. Oh my goodness. Hold on. So yes, I believe it was both Mickey Garcia and PJ Mastin who said that they began to tell, the playmates, do not go to the mansion. This is how prevalent the stories of substance abuse and abuse became. That women like Mickey Garcia and PJ Mastin started to warn playmates not to go to the mansion. So Mickey Garcia eventually develops this reputation, that she's not liked by Hugh Hefner. Hugh Hefner tells the other women, allegedly, right, to stay away from Mickey Garcia, not to listen to what Mickey Garcia has to say, that Mickey Garcia is a problem, right? And we know that realistically, right, there is a reason that Mickey Garcia wasn't fired. So remember we discussed hostile work environment and things like that. Well, Mickey Garcia had made it known, allegedly again, that Playboy had a problem with abuse of all different sorts. And Hugh Hefner knew that she was making that known, not outside of Playboy, right? Within the ranks. She was warning the girls and things like that. So Hugh Hefner already knew that if he were to fire her, she would have nothing to lose, right? She'd be able to go public. And the next thing is, Hugh Hefner also knew that if he were to fire her, she could allege what? Retaliation. Retaliation, everyone. Okay, so follow the stream of legal thought here. Mickey Garcia is in a hostile work environment, right, where women are made to feel that they should not report instances of abuse. She begins to talk about this issue within the group. So internally in Playboy, she starts to warn women. That gets to Hugh Hefner. Hugh Hefner knows that he cannot fire Mickey Garcia. If he fires Mickey Garcia, she can claim what? Retaliation. She can say, I was internally reporting things that were happening, and because of that, I was fired as retaliation. And that is what you call a lawsuit. Okay, everyone? All right. So let's see. Nappy Yankee says, oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah. I'll leave his comment up so you all can read it. Yeah. And let me tell you, I am so grateful. I am so grateful to not enter this space depending on this space for financial revenue. Like I said, I came to YouTube because it's a free venue that I can teach, we can learn together, and then I can step away, and honestly, I feel, and a lot of people don't know this about people who YouTube is their career. You guys, a person who YouTube is that person's livelihood, it is a hard job, y'all, because they have to try to please the viewers of YouTube. They have to try to please the algorithm of YouTube. They have to try to get, the powers that be at YouTube to like their content. That's a hard job. And that also means that you can't have boundaries and standards, right? It means for the most part that you have to be willing to do whatever. Okay. The actual upstanding content creator that can make a living off of YouTube is few and far in between. Okay. There are some, but it's not an easy job, y'all. It's not an easy gig. And I'm blessed to have a profession that doesn't rely on it. Right. All right. So a Jade Stone says something awesome about Mickey Garcia. She still told everything she knew. She did, and we will get to that. So so that is the reason that Mickey Garcia was not fired, because that would only strengthen a legal claim against Playboy, right? She would then have a claim for retaliation. So now eventually, right, the wheels start to spin against Playboy, and Mickey Garcia actually testifies at a Senate hearing. And she tells everything that she knows about Playboy. She shares all of the incidents of abuse. She shares the behind the scenes incidents at the offices. She shares everything that she knows, and she puts it all out there. Unfortunately for Mickey Garcia, Hugh Hefner had a lot of the media in his pocket, and nothing that she said ever really took up any steam back then, sadly. But that is the story, right? The truncated story of Mickey Garcia. Okay. Now there's one more story I want to share with you all that Mickey shares that I just found to be so compelling. So she talks about, as I said, the substance abuse. And she talks about women who showed up healthy and sober and then they end up addicted to substances. She alleges that Hugh Hefner would use hard substances as a way to open the women up, as a way to get them to do things that they would not normally do. And some of these women then became addicted to these substances, using it to numb the memory of the things they had been through. So she shares one young woman in particular who she said was so beautiful and she wanted her to become a model. And she was really trying to push this woman forward in her modeling career. And Hugh Hefner introduced the substances to this woman. And she said this woman became so far addicted to this substance that she could not even work as a playmate anymore because she could not function. She could not get up on time for jobs. She wasn't taking care of her personal hygiene. She was just, her addiction had taken over her life. And so Mickey Garcia describes that this woman was living in an apartment and that Mickey herself would go and she would bring this woman groceries. She then goes on to allege that Hugh Hefner discovered that she was going and bringing this girl groceries and that she was directed by Hugh Hefner not to continue to contact this woman. She was ordered by Hugh Hefner not to bring this woman groceries, to leave her on her own. And as Mickey Garcia is telling the story, she's sobbing. She's saying, you introduced her to these substances. She's addicted now and you want to leave her to die. She says that she was told, allegedly, that Hugh Hefner did not want to have any connection to this woman because of, her being embarrassing with the level of addiction that she had reached. And Mickey Garcia describes that is when she knew that Hugh Hefner was just a person that, in her opinion, is devoid of humanity. So, Mickey Garcia, everyone. So the next episode is called The Big Playboy Lie. The Big Playboy Lie focuses on the idea that someone could start as a playmate and then become a model or a movie star or something of that nature, right? And this episode is sort of the lead into that story that I just shared with you, where Mickey Garcia was in tears talking about the young woman, right? So the gist of this episode is this. A lot of women who joined Playboy believed they were doing so to further their career. They believed that they could then, as I said, become a model or an actress or something of that nature. And Playboy led them to believe that. But Playboy had a dirty secret, right, that no one knew about. And Playboy knew. Playboy knew that within Hollywood, within the world of the Hollywood structure, playmates were not taken seriously. Playboy knew that playmates were not taken as actresses or models or anything, that a playmate was seen as an S object. That's it. And Playboy knew that. But Playboy also knew that to reel in these girls, it had to have them buy into the idea that they could be more, right? That yeah, maybe you're posing, bucky naked for a magazine now, but you could be so much more. From here, you can go anywhere. From here, you can do anything. Playboy knew that women had to buy into that for them to continue to receive the type of young talent that they were receiving. And so they perpetuated that idea knowing that it wasn't true. Okay. And so again, that's part of what Mickey Garcia shares with us. And the gist of it is that women just really it wasn't realistic for them to use Playboy as a springboard into anything else, because playmates were not taken seriously on the world stage. Okay. So then we get into the next episode. The next episode is called Predator's Ball. Okay. And that's where we're going to stop for today. Today, we're going to talk about Predator's Ball. And then we're going to get into episode 9 and 10 next week. Okay. So this is going to be ongoing. So now, Predator's Ball. All right. Now, Predator's Ball discusses some of the folks that I promised you we would get around to, okay? In Predator's Ball, we discuss Roman Polanski and we discuss Bill Cosby, all right? We'll also discuss Jim Brown, okay? So what I'm going to do is pull up for you all a little photo of Roman Polanski, and we are going to have a conversation about Mr. Polanski. Now, some of you may already be familiar with Roman Polanski. If you are, then hey, that's good. But if you are not already familiar with Roman Polanski, you will become familiar today, right? We're going to have a conversation about who he was, what he was accused of, okay? And why his relationship with Hugh Hefner is problematic. Okay. Alrighty. So I am going to hop into the chat. I feel like I missed someone. I hope I didn't. No, I don't think so. I think I said hello to everyone. All right, so let's hop into who Roman Polanski is. So Roman Polanski is or was at that time, right, a film director, producer, screenwriter, and actor. Now, he had a very, very interesting familial background. He was alive during the invasion of Poland by Nazi Germany, and had a very interesting story to tell about that, right? So he had a very, very interesting background. He then later on had a wife and 4 friends who were, I don't want to use that word, but what does it matter at this point? YouTube's not recommending my videos anyway. 4 friends who were killed by members of the Mastin family, which is yet another interesting chapter in his life, right? So you have a man who is not only very interesting in the works that he's producing, but also his background, his personal life is very interesting. So, of course, he strikes up a friendship with Hugh Hefner. Now, he is a regular visitor to the mansion. He and Hugh Hefner are close friends. He and Hugh Hefner spend a lot of time together. And then the shoe drops. Okay. So then in 1977, Polanski was arrested and charged with providing illegal substances to and taking advantage of a 13-year-old girl. Okay. He allegedly pled guilty to a lesser offense. He then found out that the judge was not going to accept this plea deal, which would mean that all he would get is probation. He wouldn't have to go to prison. So instead of having to go to prison, which for those of you who do not know anything about prison culture, a man who has committed that type of offense in prison is going to face some hard times. Okay. So Polanski then flees the country to Paris because he does not want to end up in prison. Now, when Polanski goes on to Europe, he continues to create films and continues to direct. And here is the craziest thing. Here is the craziest thing. As Polanski continues to direct over in Europe, he continues to rack up Oscar nominations. That's right, you all. Someone who is on the run for being inappropriate with a 13-year-old girl is being nominated for Oscars and Golden Globes. Did you hear? Okay, let me run it back. A man who is on the run for being inappropriate with a 13-year-old girl is still being nominated for Oscars and Golden Globes. I mean, is that for real? Is that for real? What do you all think about that? Tell me in the chat. What do you all think about this man being on the run, being a fugitive from these types of charges, and continuing to work in Europe, and then being nominated for Oscars and Golden Globes while he has evaded prison for these types of charges? A Jade Stone says that is privilege. I mean, can you imagine? Can you imagine that first of all, that you be able to continue to work is beyond me. But then that the Oscars and the Golden Globes and these people continue to reward him. So, anywho, let's connect it back to the secrets of Playboy, shall we? So, as I said, Polanski and Hefner were close friends, and as you often hear, birds of a feather, right? So, the witnesses in this episode, they describe, the fallout of what happened with Polanski. And they expressed that Hugh Hefner had discussed how he felt about Polanski and the prosecution and Polanski being on the run. And according to these people, Hugh Hefner was upset that Polanski got caught. I'm going to say that again. According to these people, Hugh Hefner was upset that Polanski got caught. Not that Polanski did what he did, but that Polanski got caught. And he had referred to Polanski several times as, oh, that idiot, and was very upset that Polanski got caught. Not that he did what he did. Alrighty, everyone. So now that we have our background on Roman Polanski, that leads us into some of, I'm not going to say everyone's favorite person, but some of you, your favorite person, Mr. Bill Cosby. So I'm sure you knew it was coming, right? Because you know that Hugh Hefner and Bill Cosby were friends, so you knew it was coming. And we've already kind of discussed PJ Mastin and her Cosby story. Okay, but her Cosby story was one of many, y'all. There are several stories about Bill Cosby and the Playboy Mansion. I mean, several stories about Bill Cosby and the Playboy Mansion. Okay. So let's talk about one that is kind of along the lines of Roman Polanski. So one of the allegations about Bill Cosby and the Playboy Mansion is that Cosby allegedly brought an underage girl to Playboy Mansion. Now, allegedly, Cosby arrived at the mansion with this underage girl. He then sat and had drinks brought where he and this underage girl drank alcoholic drinks, right? And the girl herself, the underage girl herself, then went on to say that she was taken to a room by Bill Cosby at the Playboy Mansion where she was assaulted. Okay. Now, as I said, this is one of many. I think there are over 12 stories of Bill Cosby at the Playboy Mansion. And, the thing about it that is the most shocking for everyone is the boldness of it. I think that's the most shocking thing for these allegations because, yes, Playboy Mansion is Playboy Mansion, right? But Playboy Mansion is still in the United States, and we like to think, Americans, I mean, when I say we like to think that we live in a country where something like that would have to happen, like, underground somewhere or, in a bunker somewhere. We don't want to think that a man could really pull up to a home in Hollywood somewhere and everyone, I mean, there are tons of people on the Playboy Mansion grounds at any given time, and they see this girl and she's visibly underage, right? And yet still she's being served alcoholic drinks and she's being taken into rooms with adult men, allegedly. We don't like to think that that's possible in our country. So it is a jarring story to hear. Nappy Yankee says that Cosby and Hef were close right up until Hef's death. Yes, they were. Mara Cherise says, I won't lie, when I first heard this, I believed none of it about Cosby. But then there was one story that struck me. I don't need more than one to look at you differently. You know, Mara, it's funny you say that because when I first heard these things about Cosby, I knew it was true. This is kind of similar to there's something else that we discussed where Mara, you were saying you didn't believe it at first, and I'm like, I did. Yeah, I'm going to tell you why. Everyone was focused per usual on the wrong thing. When people first started to talk about Cosby, everyone was focused on the race of the women that were accusing Cosby. Everyone was focused on the women being Caucasian. Oh, they're Caucasian, they're Caucasian, they're Caucasian, blah, blah, blah. Listen, you're not going to tell me that over 20 something women all came together and got on one accord to come against you. You can't even get 20 something women to agree on a nail color. If you pick 20 random women and you ask us each what's the most beautiful nail color, we're all going to disagree, right? So you can't get me to believe that they could get over 20 women to all describe the same pattern of behavior. The minute I see numbers like that, I know it's true. I know it's true. And people were so hung up on the race of these victims that they really wanted to pretend like it wasn't true. Unbelievable. A Jade Stone says, I watched a documentary and Bill was a tyrant. I mean, the accusations are horrific. To take a young girl like that and give her alcoholic drinks, and I mean, it was just horrific. Horrific. Okay. Okay. So that was Bill Cosby. Okay. Now we got to talk about someone that I don't think anyone really expected. Okay. And I'm going to pull up some pictures of him, right? Just so, because I don't think we talk about him often, so we're going to pull up some pictures so that we can all see who it is we are discussing. Okay. So let me go here. Let me go to share my screen. Here we go. All right. So you guys got the visual now, right? This is who we're talking about. All right. So this is young Jim Brown here. See him here. Okay. Jim Brown here. Another young Jim Brown. Not a bad looking young man, right? Why he became, well, we'll get to that. Jim Brown. Okay. This is interesting. I've never seen this one. What is this? Football's greatest actor. Okay. Young Jim Brown. So I'm going to leave this one up because we need to have a conversation about his strength. Now, look at this. This man looks to be a pretty strong man, right? Okay. Keep that in mind because we're about to develop this conversation. Now, Jim Brown was another regular at the Playboy Mansion, right? Another friend of Hugh Hefner. Many witnesses have said they saw him there very often, pretty much at the same frequency as like a Bill Cosby, right? Now, here's the thing. It was alleged, or it's been alleged rather, that Jim had carte blanche at the mansion, right? He could just come up to the mansion and pick whatever playmate he wanted to. And that playmate knew when she was chosen by Jim Brown that she was required to do whatever he wanted. Okay. But it gets crazier. The playmates allege, and also one of Hefner's assistants. Okay, so you have playmates who are making allegations, and these allegations are then confirmed by one of Hefner's assistants. They allege that Brown was extremely physical with these women. They allege that he had caused some serious injuries. They allege that he had cracked ribs of playmates, that he's dislocated women's jaws before, that he's given women all type of facial injuries, all type of physical injuries, and that it was the norm for him to be that physically violent with the playmates. Now, look at the picture that I left up here. Look at the physical stature of that man. And imagine that man taking a woman and deciding to physically dominate her to the point where she has cracked ribs, to the point where she has a dislocated jaw. What? And again, none of these things were ever reported to the police. Okay. Now here's the next part. One of Hefner's assistants, as well as one of the former playmates, they describe witnessing an incident with Jim Brown and another woman. They described that the woman had been, I guess Jim Brown thought that no one could see them where they were because they were kind of like behind a wall, but there was an opening that someone could see through, and he didn't know that. The woman had been bound to the chair. It looked, from what they described, like Jim Brown had bound her to this chair, and he was just being absolutely tyrannical with this woman. And there was nothing she could do because she was bound up, she was tied up, and she was screaming and pleading for help, right? And begging him to stop. And this was, according to the witnesses at the Playboy Mansion, the norm for Jim Brown. Again, nothing that Bill Cosby did at the mansion was ever reported to the police. Nothing that Roman Polanski did at the mansion was ever reported to the police. Nothing that Jim Brown did at the mansion was ever reported to the police. These women were taken by, the cleanup crew, and they were cleaned up and they were convinced in whatever way they needed convincing not to tell anyone outside of Playboy and to just keep it quiet. And so, yeah, as I've said before, the statute of limitations for many of these incidents has long passed, right? Because these things were kept quiet for so long. And so we probably won't see any, criminal prosecutions come out of any of this at this point. So I am in the chat. Mara Cherie said, don't let my mama find out. You better tell your mom. You better tell your mom about him. Nappy Yankee said, Jim Brown has a very disturbing history with women. Ooh. You see, I didn't know about Jim Brown's history until this show. I mean, I must have missed it because I did not know about Jim Brown's history until this show. And when I started to hear about his history, I was like, oh my, I got so disturbed. I got so disturbed when I started to hear about this man's history. Ooh. Empress Kaya said Hef had leverage on everybody. He sure did. So, as I've discussed, that is how Hef kept things out of the media. If the media were to get a hold of anything, he had leverage on everyone. Why, you might ask? Well, here's why. If Hugh Hefner has a party at Playboy Mansion, he invites all of the writers and editors and photographers in the media. And no one's going to turn down partying for free at a mansion with free drinks and free food and free debauchery, right? And then remember that Hugh Hefner records everything. So now every reporter, every photographer, every editor, right? Every journalist is at these parties participating in debauchery and being recorded. So it was known and it was understood that, yes, Hefner had leverage on these people, allegedly. And that kept a lot of these things out of the media. All right. Nappy Yankee says Jim Brown also has a history with his current wife. What? No way. Y'all, we're going to look that up. Jim Brown and wife. What? Jim Brown and... Oh, this is his wife? Oh, she's really pretty. Is this the wife that we're talking about? Let's see. Huh. She's really young, too. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute, y'all. Remember the conversation we had about men who are never in their own age group? If you missed that combo, run it back. But let's go to all. Let's see here. 38 years younger than him. Wow. She's 38 years. They've been happily married for 2 decades, though. So what's the story? Nappy Yankee, tell us, because I don't see it. What's the story? Is it with the wife before this wife, Nappy Yankee? Because this wife seems to be alleging that everything's great. 38 years younger. 38 years younger. 38 years younger. 30. I can't stop saying it. These men are never with women in their age group. Nappy Yankee, we need some more details. We need some more details because we can't find what's going on with him and his wife. I think it may have been the ex-wife and not this wife. So, Nappy Yankee, if you could fill us in on that, please. We're curious. We're curious. All right, so where are we? Oh yeah, we're here. Okay, so we're going to pick up next week with the Shadow Mansions, right? Which is episode 9. We'll also get into episode 10 next week. Okay. And we also have some other topics coming down the pike that, yeah, Nappy Yankee confirmed what I said. It's not this one. So it's not this wife. It might be his ex-wife. We also have some other stories coming down that I want us to kind of preface and have some housekeeping, right? We're going to talk about the Great Reset. If you're not familiar with the Great Reset, get familiar, okay? Because I'm going to do, you all know I promised you another expose, and it's coming. It's coming. It's coming. I promise. The last one that I did on the House of Foolishness, if you get it, you get it. YouTube didn't like that one for some reason, and I just scrapped the whole project, okay? But another one is coming up, okay? And we're going to cover some topics, including the Great Reset. So look out for that, okay? You have expose number 2 coming up. I'm still doing an expose on I'm not going to be petty, on Zaza Ali, aka Ginger Daniels. Okay, so her expose is still coming as well. So those things will be dropping. I imagine that I'll have expose number 2 up for you by the end of this month, and then you'll get the Ginger Snap expose. I'm sorry. Oh, sorry, I got confused. Ginger Daniels next month. Okay. Jade Stone, you'll find out what it is. You'll find out what it is in the expose. All right. Oh, okay. So Nappy Yankee gave us a little link here. Let me see if I can copy and paste it. Will it let me? Because, you know, I'm on my laptop, Nappy. Show. Oh, it won't let me copy and paste. Oh, wait, will it? No, it won't let me. Darn it. That's really annoying. I really wanted to go to the link, but I can't. All right. Well, we will pick up next week with the continuation of the secrets of Playboy. All right. Listen, I hope you have been empowered by the legal information shared here today. All right. Those of you who are catching this on the replay, let me know what you think. You know, do you think that Mickey Garcia and PJ Mastin and these women, do you think that they were kind of somewhat complicit? You know, they didn't work for Playboy for a year or two. They worked for Playboy for quite some time. And PJ Mastin was even a part of the cleanup crew. So how do you feel about that? Do you feel that it's fair for these women to now just say, hey, listen, I want to come clean? Or do you think they were also complicit in this? All right. I'm curious. Let me know. And for my peeps in the chat, drop your opinion in the chat. You know, do you think that PJ Mastin and Mickey Garcia were also complicit? Or do you think that they've kind of redeemed themselves by coming forward to share what they saw? Okay. Also, if you're catching this on the replay, check out the links that Nappy Yankee dropped in the chat for you to give you a little bit more background on Jim Brown. Okay. So anywho, I will catch you all next week. Thank you so much for being here. You bring something unique to this world, to this channel, to my life that no one else does. And I love you for it. All right. I'll see you soon.